Hello, jobless and no job wannabes. This is the No Job Podcast. And today we're going to talk with a guy who actually changed my life. I'm talking about David DeCelle. I met Dave in 2018. I was failing as a financial advisor at that time, and he came to the practice that I worked for and talked about the services he offers to financial advisors. And to be honest, I got more from that presentation than I think Dave could ever imagine or ever really even knew until now. So, just to give a little bit of background, Dave is the president of the Model FA. It's a coaching platform which is dedicated to helping financial advisors get in front of more clients, grow their businesses, and enjoy a fulfilling life. To succeed at something that they want to do, and really to enjoy holistic success that extends beyond the workplace. And listen closely when I tell you this. Listen very closely. It doesn't matter what your aspirations are. I promise you this. You can learn a lot from this man. So, without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, David DeCelle. How's it going, man?
That was an awesome intro. I appreciate that. And to your point at the beginning, going in and speaking, at your office and hearing what you just said, a few years later, like that's why I do what I do is to help people and for you to remember whatever I had said, because quite frankly, I don't remember what I had said at that point, but the fact that it had an impact for you to A, invite me on the show, B, have it be memorable, and C, for you to continue to share that. I'm grateful for that introduction. So thank you for that.
Man, I'm glad I was able to return the favor of doing something positive for you by saying those words, because you sure helped me. And I gotta say, even though I'm not a financial advisor now, what you talked about transcended the realm of financial advising. So I know that's your focus and those are the people that you help most of the time, but I knew that you'd be a valuable guest to have on this show for anybody who aspires to do anything, just because of the kind of things you teach and the kind of person you are. So if you don't mind, I want to start at the beginning, kind of a fun question. Can you tell me, what is the first time you remember earning any money? When's the first time you remember doing something and getting paid for it, whatever it was?
So my mind was going one place, but I think it's even before that, because when I, first started working, post college, I was the financial advisor, or I should say, I was the quote, landscaper who would cut his grass last. So I was the financial advisor who didn't necessarily practice what I preached in terms of saving and investing early on in my career. And I remember back to like when I was a child and I wanted to say, go to the movies, right? My parents never like just handed me something. They would make me work for it, whether it was chores or some sort of task or whatever. And they would give me, $20, that I earned. And then I would go and spend that $20 bill and go to the movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening, without them realizing it, of course, without me realizing it, is I was taught to go out, earn money, and then spend every dollar of that on
Right.
something, and
Right.
therefore the saving wasn't, instilled. So I would say that's the first memory I have of making money, and in terms
Gotcha.
of a more legitimate job, ranges. I mean, we could talk all day about these other jobs, but I'll toss it back to you.
So I'm not 100% aware of every stop along the way in your journey to the point that you're at now. So I know you obviously were an advisor. What did you do anything between college and that?
So when I was 16 years old, a good friend of mine, Julian, we went to high school together, and he started at this company called West Marine. It's a retail store for all things boating. And, so he was working there. I started working there, and we had these people coming in to the store asking us how to buff and wax their boat and what materials they need, or, whatever projects that they were exploring, bottom paint, gel coat repair, whatever. And Julian was really good at explaining it in a very detailed fashion, to the point where the customer would say, well, can you just do this for me? Like, I don't know how to do this. So lo and behold, at 16 years old, we started a company called HD Marine, where from 16 to actually through the internship as a financial advisor, I was doing both. I had my suit on some days and I was, working on the boat some days, but for, a 5-year period, we were buffing and waxing boats and doing a bunch of different things, with them. And over that 5-year period, clientele continued to grow. We took over an entire pier in a place called Gloucester in Massachusetts. And, business was going really, really well, especially for, teenagers,
Yeah.
really. But that's what got me from, my camp counselor job as a child, right?
Right.
Through my job as a financial advisor is the boat detailing and repair business.
Okay, got you. And so on this show, we have a saying, everybody has to earn a living, but nobody has to have a job. And the idea is that for most people, a job is what they ended up doing in order to pay the bills, in order to be able to eat. We're all looking for work to do that's meaningful to us, or at the very least that we enjoy, something that helps us get up in the morning instead of making us want to go to bed at night. So did you ever have in your head the possibility of having a job, or did you always know for you it was going to be doing something exciting, doing something that meant something to you?
I've outside of my camp counselor job, as I had alluded to, where that was hourly, I've never had a real quote unquote job. I've always wanted to create something for myself so that I can serve others. And, even going back to, for a couple, 2, 3 years or whatever, I was bussing tables at a restaurant while I was doing the boat detailing, gig. And I was bussing the tables over the, off months weather-wise. And I would notice things like there were other bussers who would bust the table slower, or they little things like they'd put the salt and pepper shaker like not where it's supposed to go, and then the wait staff would have to go and fix it. And I would do it so fast, and I would make sure that things were perfectly in alignment to where customers who tip the wait staff would also tip me because they'd see me hustling, and then the wait staff would over tip me out what they're supposed to do because it was just going above and beyond. And that was probably the first instance
Right.
alongside the boat detailing business where I started realizing that if you, and you've heard this saying, right? How you do one thing is how you do everything, or how you do
Right.
anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So taking pride in, if you're going to be at McDonald's flipping burgers, those better be the best burgers that anyone's ever had, because that translates into all other aspects of your life. So I've
Sure.
always had that entrepreneurial tendency, and part of the reason too is I don't like to be told what to do. I'm an only child, right? So it's kind of like in my blood in that sense.
Hmm.
But I think from as far back as I can remember, I've never wanted a legit kind of 9 to 5 job, W-2 type of job. It's just it's not where I derive energy. I like to
Right.
have some flexibility, and I like to be paid for what I think I'm worth, as opposed to hoping and praying that someone's going to see that and give me a raise.
Sure. And you said a few awesome things there that I want to unpack. First of all, you said having a job isn't where you derive energy. And I've never heard it quite said that way, but I so identify with that. Like jobs take energy away from me, more energy than they should, more than the sum of the energy that you expend doing the work. It's like killing me. And I think a lot of people in this community can identify with that. But the other key component of what you just said is that you wanted to build something for yourself, serving others. I love the juxtaposition of yourself and others. I see business ownership, entrepreneurship as nothing more than taking ownership of your contributions to the world, as opposed to getting up under someone else's vision and helping them do whatever they want to do for the world, which could be great. But if you can't derive energy from that place, you're going to end up worse off rather than better. So those are just some insights I grabbed from what you said there. And so tell me about, so I know this because, I know your background a little bit. You were successful in your internship at the financial advising practice we were both associated with. Tell me about how you got there. Tell me about the internship and why you stuck around after it.
So part of the reason why I knew I wanted to be a financial advisor at some point in college, and
Okay.
it was really twofold. How I ended up at that particular organization was just luck through a career portal where you upload your resume and the recruiter reached out to me. So there was no rhyme or reason as to where I ended up. But I wanted to be a financial advisor for two reasons. One, from my understanding, they made a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
Two, they knew what to do with their money. So my background is more like blue collar in terms of my family.
Sure.
Had enough money, of course, to pay bills and get by, but nothing like super lavish. And there are points in times where it was stressful financially. So not only did I want to be able to solve that problem by making a lot of money, but I also wanted to know what to do with that money. Now, I didn't act on that in the first part of my career,
Hmm.
but that was my intention going in. So
Yeah.
I did the internship, and the internship in a 3-month period, I made more money than I did in the boat business over that same period.
Right.
So, being able to go to work in a suit and have clean hands as opposed to getting dirty and, doing that, it was just
Sure.
more appealing to me.
Yeah.
So with the internship program, did well with that. I think it was like 20th in the country out of 2,500 or so
Yeah.
interns. So it was like, okay, I got the hang of this. Went full time and was there for 7 years. And I loved that I was helping people. I loved that I was making good money. And then part of my um, shift in my responsibilities was when I was 22. So a couple years into it, I
Hmm.
took over our new advisor development program, which was a combination between the internship program and anyone who converted from that internship or new hires. And I took that over, and I had that over a 5-year period from 22 to 27.
Got it.
And over that period of time, there was like 350 offices throughout the country with this company. And I ran the program into the ground. And if you're just
Uh-huh.
listening to the audio, I got finger quotes up. I was a
Yeah.
22-year-old leader,
Yeah.
whatever that means. So we ranked like 300th based on production. It was
Uh-huh.
terrible, and it was a shot to my ego. And the mission of that program was to identify the future leaders of our firm
Hmm.
and to make sure that they're better off having met us than having not met us.
Sure.
So what ended up there was a few things that changed, but the main message that changed was the mission. Where what
Hmm.
I found myself doing is if someone wasn't going to stay there long term, I would just write them off and not help them out anymore. Sometimes it was conscious, sometimes it was subconscious, but it was like, well, they're not worth my time because they're not going to be here long term.
Yeah.
So I switched the mission around to become, I want to make sure that you're better off having met us than having not met us,
Right.
and also to identify the future leaders of our firm. So literally
Hmm.
just switched it. And what I
Sure.
found myself doing is running more trainings on personal development. What I found myself doing is helping place them at other companies if they wanted to leave. And I felt myself actually caring about them as humans. And as a result, over that 4-year period after the first year, we got up as high as number one in the country for 9 of the 12 months that they do the ranking.
Yeah.
And that's when I had made my transition. And I think they finished at either number 3 or number 5 once the score hits the board, so to speak.
Hmm.
And it all came down to actually viewing these people as people and not just another cog in the wheel to hit certain production metrics.
Right.
But it was over that journey that I fell in love with the development of other people and kind of what triggered me to make the change from there.
Got it. Would you say seeing other people and potential clients and customers as people who need you to serve them is key to your success or key to giving you the drive to succeed?
Part of it, I would say that I get more energy, if I'm just being honest, from people not that need help and guidance, but people who want
Right.
help and guidance, because it's
Right.
just a totally different dynamic in those conversations and that
Sure.
relationship.
Uh-huh.
And I think, the other piece of that is obviously serving others, but making sure that I have really big goals, and I feel like if your goal is here at eye level and you're currently at chin level, I'm doing this for people who are just listening to the audio.
Yeah.
The amount of energy that you can extend towards your goal is a difference between your chin and your eyes in that example.
Hmm.
Whereas if your goals are astronomical
Right.
and you're here, you have this much energy, right? So
Sure.
and a way to put that is like, let's say, for example, someone wants to get super fit and like get a six pack.
Yeah.
Well, you probably find yourself starting to see one and then going and having pizza and working out less because you can see it right there. You don't have as much energy to expend
Yeah.
towards that.
Right.
Whereas if you keep moving the chains forward, I don't think that a goal should ever be hit. I think
Hmm.
goals are simply just checkpoints and confirmations that you're in the right that you're going in the right direction. But you
Right.
constantly need to be increasing your goals to continue to maintain or increase the energy that you're spending towards those goals. Otherwise, complacency kicks in and you
Hmm.
take your foot off the gas.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome that you see. It seems like you see energy as having more energy as a sign that you're on the right track. And that definitely makes sense. I can say back when I was at the firm, I was in advising for all the wrong reasons from the start. It's because I recognized in myself that I hated having a job, didn't do the kind of research I should have done to find out if the opportunity as an advisor was right for me. Uh, Ended up there, uh, made so much less money than I did the previous year just working the job. And one defining characteristic of my time there and my time doing that kind of work was I felt like a lack of energy. I always felt
Mhm.
like energy was being taken from me and drained. But when you came to the firm that day, I sensed a lot of great energy on you, and you knew how to articulate the usage and the the formation and the gathering of this energy. So that's one thing I really appreciated about you. So after you figured out how to serve people and where your best energy comes from, how to succeed, how to get more work out of yourself. Once you got there, and I know you were successful at the firm, what made you say, okay, now I don't want to do this anymore?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do necessarily. Like I didn't know that I wanted to start a consulting company for advisors. I knew that I didn't want to be an advisor anymore. And I think it was, a couple things. Number one, the organization that we were at had a very much like a heavy sales based culture in a service based industry. And it didn't feel right. And I just got burnt out with that. I also felt as if even though you can have an amazing career, I want more than that, like a more entrepreneurial than just doing one thing. And we were limited in what we could do outside of that firm.
Yep.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think this is relevant for folks that are listening to this that may want to know, well, you know, I don't like my job necessarily, but I don't know what to do. Right. So
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do either. I
Hmm.
did a bunch of different stuff and I wish I could remember everything, but I got contracted to sell. This was all in like as I was phasing out of being an advisor and figuring out what I wanted to do. I did anything from trying to generate leads for businesses and I had no idea how to do it. I was just trying to figure it out and like partner up with people where I would go sell it and they would do the fulfillment.
Hmm.
I was trying to sell like knickknacks online, like with drop shipping and stuff like that. That didn't work.
Hmm.
Um, I got contracted to sell software for an auction company, which was just so random. I drove with Uber.
Uh-huh.
I dug holes for a telecommunications company. Now, mind you, I was used to wearing a suit for 7 years,
Right.
making six figures, and then I
Yeah.
was digging holes.
Right.
Um, so there was a multitude of different things that I felt lost at that point in my life and I didn't know what to do. And there were times where I'd go out and do those things. And there were times where I'd sit on the couch and kind of feel depressed because I wasn't living towards any particular purpose.
Hmm.
And if you're not living towards your purpose, it's like, well, what's the point? what's the point of living? But I think,
Yeah.
you just need to try a lot of things and kiss a lot of frogs, so to speak. And ultimately you'll certainly find out what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully if you stick with it, you'll stumble across something that you actually do want to do.
Right.
But that was kind of the in between phase from what I was doing from a stable perspective to what I'm doing now. There was a lot of stuff in between, and that was probably a 6 to 8 month process.
hmm hmm So again, when did it dawn on you that, or was it just one of the things you tried consulting for advisors and you said this works, or did it dawn on you somehow that you wanted to give this a shot?
So it was okay. I'm kind of good at this based on where the program was brought right over that 5 year period. So I knew I was good at it, and then you combine that with the fact that I had a lot of ideas that when you work for a large company, you can have the best ideas in the world, but they're just slow moving and they don't necessarily allow you to execute on everything. So I just kept hitting roadblocks, and I could see the vision as to how this could be amazing, and they weren't buying into it because they're just like stuck in the box, right?
Right.
So it was a combination of knowing that I was good at it in that instance, anyways, and combining that with the opportunity that I saw on how this age-old system could be improved and innovated and redeveloped for people our age, in their 20s
Yeah.
and 30s, as opposed to the industry is riddled with a bunch of 50 and 60-year-olds, where it's like, hey, this stuff worked and there's principles that still work, but like
Right.
I don't learn like that.
Yeah.
And if you want to stay relevant, you need to shift, you need to change. So those two things combined ultimately got me to arrive at consulting for advisors now.
Okay. So how'd you get started? Because I think this can really parallel to anything anyone wants to do. Say they figure it out, right? Say they get a message from the heavens and they know exactly what they want to do. They don't know how to get started. What do you think are some transferable principles when you were just getting your feet wet in this, and about getting traction and getting going?
Yep. One would be find someone who's done what you're looking to do, at least in some way, shape, or form,
Hmm.
and ask for advice. If
Right.
someone wanted to ask me for advice for something, I'm going to take that call 11 out of 10 times because it shows initiative. And if they go and implement the advice and come back and share the results and ask for more advice, I'm going to continue to help them out because, again, that gives me energy seeing someone who's hungry and implements and succeeds. So I would say find a mentor is number one. Number two, I never read books in middle school, high school, and college. I would literally just find like, the cute girl in college that, thought I was cute too and have her summarize it for me before class, right?
Yeah.
And I just never read. Back to what I said earlier, I don't like being told what to do. So if I had this book assigned and I didn't see the value in it, I'm like, well, screw this. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. But if you want to get better at sales, go on to Google and type in best books on sales,
Right.
and listen. I listened to all my books. So this year I listened to like 170 books this year,
Right.
about on
Wow.
a multitude of different topics, and listening to it. Started off at like 1.5x speed. Now I'm at 2.5x speed, and I'll listen to the same topic from multiple different people. So I hear things multiple times, and I'll immediately use that for social media or in my consulting, so that I actually learn it and it stays as opposed to just consuming it. So I would
Mhm.
say mentor, books, and then the trap that I fell in at the very beginning was I started listening to a podcast called the MF CEO Project by Andy Frisella, which this is actually his company here,
Mhm.
First Form, and it's an amazing podcast. And I, was listening to him, and I found myself just being kind of like a information zombie, where I had a bunch of information in my head that I consumed, but I wasn't actually doing anything. So then what I did
Yeah.
was I went back to episode one and committed to taking action, at least one, piece of action from every episode, and that's what was transformed. More granular than that. So outside of finding a mentor, learning, from podcasts and audiobooks or regular books, if you like to read and not listen. I just knew who my target market was, obviously advisors. And I didn't go and try and sell them right away. I tried to add value to them. So I was literally waking up at 4 in the morning, and from like 4 to 7:30 or so, I was sending out hundreds of LinkedIn connection requests to financial advisors, inviting them to my Facebook community so I was trying to get them on multiple platforms from LinkedIn to Facebook. I was posting content on both platforms, and then I had a private Facebook group where I would add value on a daily basis to build relationships and let them know that, like, okay, the stuff that I'm sharing is legit if you actually implement it, while also getting them across multiple platforms so that my relevance increases because I'm omnipresent. Doesn't matter where they log on, they're going to see me. And you probably experienced that too, and being connected. And ever since you launched your podcast, I see your posts all the time. So your relevance is just increasing to me as well. And then from 7:30, if I had any appointments that day, from calls that would be scheduled from that, because I would offer a free coaching session, just kind of eating the proverbial what sandwich, and just putting in that sweat equity. But then whenever my meetings were done until 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night, I went back and I drove for Uber to pay my bills.
Right.
Because and again, as a reminder, I was wearing a suit making 6 figures for 7 years before that.
Yeah.
But you got to have that piece of humble pie and do what you need to do to actually pay your bills. Because one thing I did not want to do is I did not want to come out and be super salesy, because I needed to pay my bills. I needed to be resourceful and figure out what other ways can I make money so I can do this the right way,
Right.
and add value before I go in for an ask. Because if I'm making enough relational deposits with folks,
Right.
when it's time for me to make a withdrawal, they're going to allow me to do that. Whereas if I walk into a bank for the first time and say, hey, my name is David and I want to make withdrawal, and they're like, you don't even have an account yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Right. And humans are no different. You have to make enough deposits to where a withdrawal is justified. So to recap, I would say find, a mentor, someone that you can ask questions to, learn through podcasts and audiobooks or books, and take action, and then know how it is that you make money, and go after those people, but add value first, and make sure that you're being resourceful and your pride isn't getting in the way to do what you need to do to make money to pay your bills. And for me,
Sure.
that was driving for Uber.
Right. It's hard. I know there's no getting around that piece. And so often we want to think things will happen just because we really want them to happen. We think that just because I hate my job, if I quit it, something else is going to happen for me. Not so. It doesn't work like that. It certainly does. And I experienced that firsthand. So something occurred to me while you were talking about driving Uber, digging ditches, having gone from a 6-figure job for several years. What was your family saying at this time? What were the friends saying, the people around you? What did they think?
Most of which were supportive. I'm blessed in that my family and friends, they love me, right? And I'm grateful for that. However, there were instances from mom and dad and aunts and uncles or whoever that constantly tried to encourage me to go and get a job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like I would rather be broke on the side of the road and begging for money in an entrepreneurial way than go and get a job. Right. But my whole family, for the most part, some of which have been entrepreneurial, but for the most part, their current status is they all have jobs, which is fine. And I don't judge anyone who has a job. I don't judge anyone who's entrepreneurial. It's just, what is going to make you happy and where do you get energy, right? The energy piece again. But a lot of times they were encouraging me to get a job, right? And that was in probably the first 6 to 9 months or so, where I was probably the most vulnerable to give up and get a job. But it was that commitment and the dream that I had for myself, the dream that I shared with others, that kept me going during those times. But at the end of the day, hearing that stuff from people, even though they're being helpful, it does it does actually kind of hurt. I'm just kind of like realizing this now. It does kind of hurt when they say to go get a job or suggest, because the way I interpreted that at the time and that I'm interpreting it now is a lack of belief
Mhm.
in me to be able to accomplish what I want to accomplish. And I know that they're just being protective in that moment because
Yeah.
that's what their job is. No pun intended. But as I'm thinking about it, it kind of shows a lack of belief, which then instills additional resiliency in me and a chip on my shoulder to say, no, like, watch and see what I got and just enjoy the show. And I want to, in a respectful way, I want to prove you wrong. And you fast forward to now, and I've proven a lot of people wrong and a lot of people right who did believe in that dream,
Right.
because things are night and day compared to what they were just a few years ago.
Yeah. I On this show I always define work as, and the good work, the kind of work we want, as using your energy in alignment with your passion to build something that's meaningful to you. And it certainly seems like you're in that place. And that's why you're an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to other people who are listening now. At the top of the conversation, I mentioned you'd inspired me, you changed my life, and you did that with a few things. But here's one simple thing you told me, you told everybody in that room, but I personalized it, that I took and that I went and took action on, that changed things for me forever. I would not be sitting here right now if you didn't say this. You said to that room, you said, put your face in front of a camera, start talking, and post it. You said, put your face in front of a camera, start talking, and post it. And I think when you said that, it was meant to get people over the fear of presenting themselves to the world, because we were talking about marketing as it related to advising. So the next week, I started doing that, and I did it for several weeks. And people were telling me they liked it, they enjoyed it. I called it Wednesday Wisdom. People were
Hmm.
coming up to me when I saw them say, "Hey, I liked your post. It was really
You
inspirational."
every time, and I don't think you know this, but every single time that you posted a video, I would text Eddie Ritchie and be
Yeah.
like, "Yo, he's crushing it. Like, he's great behind camera. Like, make sure he keeps doing this stuff." So I didn't remember that I had said that until you just brought that up, but I
Mhm,
do remember you being pretty much the only one in that room that actually took the action,
mhm.
and did it, and you got great feedback. But I was a super fan behind the scenes with Eddie on your behalf.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I know you guys are buds. And yeah, what would you say to people who are afraid? Because I find that people are afraid to show themselves to the world as somebody who wants to do something different, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to come out as somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur. They don't want to come out as somebody who wants to take something other than the beaten path. Um, what advice would you have for those people?
I'll give some canned advice that I think is just a staple
Hmm.
in that feedback, and I'll give an example that I share with everyone who's looking to put themselves out there. Number one is, the point in time in which you realize that other people's opinions don't matter is the point in time where you actually feel free and like loose, and like you're on a dance floor and don't care what anyone's thinking or saying. You're just breaking it down, right?
Right.
But also in terms of putting yourself out there, starting a business, putting out content, there's three circles of people that you're going to experience, and it's going to start in the center, work its way out, and come back in. So the first circle of people are your friends and family, and um, the people who know you the best, and they're going to bust your chops. Why? Because that's their job, right? Their job is to just bust your chops, and sometimes it can be playful, sometimes it can be hurtful, but they're gonna bust your chops. Okay. There's the second layer of people that you know of, and they know of you, but you don't. It's not like you chat every day. It's not like you had a childhood together. Like, you and I are in each other's second circle. Okay. And typically, that second circle, what happens is they're super supportive of what you're doing. They may not pay you or buy your stuff, but they're going to be supportive of what you're doing. They're going to side chat you. Maybe they don't. They just toss you a like. But those are the people that take notice as to what you're doing. Then you have the third circle of people. I'm literally drawing these circles on the table. Then you have the third circle of people who don't know you and you don't know them, and they just come across you. And immediately, if what you're doing is of value, if what you're doing is coming from a grateful place and not salesy and shisty and whatever, those are the people that are going to start to do business with you.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're going to start sharing, the successes. People are going to start seeing some successes. And then that second circle of people, they're going to start doing business with you, or they're going to start collaborating with you like you and I are right now.
Sure.
Okay. And then the first circle of people, they're going to start being super supportive because they realize, oh, like, we busted his chops at first, but now he's actually legit. I want to be on the right side of history and make sure that I'm being supportive. And maybe they're, buying your stuff, whatever it is that you're offering. But they're certainly telling other people about you, and they're sharing your stuff, and they're being super supportive. If you can make it past that initial circle of people busting your chops and realize that someone who is doing more than you, who is more successful than you, and someone who is where you want to be, those people don't try and knock you down. Those people don't bust your chops. It's always the people who are below you, either currently or will be, and they want to keep you where they're at. Those are the ones that try and pull you back down. And that's not necessarily a conscious decision on their end. Like my mom or dad who are suggesting that I, get a job, they're not intentionally trying to pull me down. They're just trying to protect me and trying to love me. Right. But when you realize that what they have to say doesn't matter, and you just need to stick with your gut and, charge forward, persevere, be tenacious, they're going to look back and be like, I'm really proud of you for doing that. Even though they may not have been supportive or may not have, had the same belief as you did, because it's not their beliefs. Like, it's your beliefs. So how can you expect someone to buy into it as much as you?
Right.
Right. So again, three circles of folks, and people's opinions don't matter. And once you realize that, you feel true freedom.
For sure, man. Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate your time. Um, Again, the impact you made on my life, I think you could make on anybody else's life who listens to this podcast if, like you said, they take the information they've learned and they do something with it. If they change something about their lives based on the wisdom you provided. Guys, I'm vouching for this guy. You need to go follow him. You need to digest what he says, and then you need to go and do it. I promise he doesn't want anything from you. He is literally just trying to help. Dave, please tell the people where they can find you and where they can connect.
Appreciate that. So if you just literally go onto Google and type in David DeCelle, DeCelle, the whole first page will be on my social media, some articles, website, whatever. The platform that I use the most is Instagram, which is also on that, but the handle itself is just David_DeCelle, DeCelle. And toss me a follow, shoot me a message, let me know that you listen to this episode, and happy to chat, happy to be supportive from afar. And however I can be of service, don't hesitate to ask. I have a saying that is stuck with me that was shared with me a while ago that says, you have not because you ask not.
Right.
I literally have a tattoo on me that reminds me to ask for something if you want it. And the worst that can happen is someone says no. And the best that can happen is you get what you ask for. So if there's anything that I can do or insight that I can provide, or if you think you can be of service to me in any way, it's not like I know everything. So if there's a way that you could help me, don't, be afraid to just touch base and slide in the DMs and let's have a conversation.
Yes. And also, by the way, people, I know you might not have mentioned it because it skews toward financial advisors, but I did listen to the Model FA podcast. I love that last episode on
Mm.
being a great conversationalist. Plenty of great content in this guy's universe for you to check out. Again, thanks so much, man. I hope you have a great night. Um, Love to have you on the show again sometime, and really appreciate you being here.
Appreciate the invite, and grateful that started with a random talk at your office a few years ago. And I think it shows the power of staying connected and staying relevant and putting yourself out there on social media, where it's not like you or I need to explain to each other who we are. Like, hey, remember me? You literally reached out about the podcast, and I was like, yeah, dude, like, let's go. Happy to help, and thanks for giving me the platform to chat for a bit. So grateful for the opportunity, and excited to see where your journey takes you. I know you're working hard, and you're doing your best to help people, and God and the universe rewards folks for those efforts. So excited to see where you're headed, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. God bless and have a great one.
All right, take care.
All right. So guys, we're just coming off of our interview with David DeCelle, president of the Model FA. Now that was a valuable interview. There were a lot of nuggets there, a lot to unpack, but I'll try to keep it brief. Some things for you to take home and think about, but don't think about it for too long. You got to do them if you want them to have any effect in your life. First, when Dave talked about working in the boating yard, cleaning the boats, buffing them, and even when he was a waiter, he said people noticed how hard he worked, how diligent he was. And the word that came to mind for me was integrity. And I think a lot of us discredit or devalue the importance of integrity in our chances at success, right? We think morals and integrity are a separate quality that have nothing to do with our ability to succeed. But if you want to succeed the right way, if you want to succeed and have a clear conscience, you need to have integrity. And that has to boil down to the way that you pour a drink as a bartender, to the way that you scrub the tables, to the way that you pour on the Parmesan cheese as a busboy. The way that you do anything is the way that you do everything. If you try to cheat, if you try to slack in the little things, that habit will creep into the big things. Next, and this was a key nugget, Dave talked about finding where your energy comes from, where you get the most energy, and following that path. If it makes you tired, if it literally makes you want to go to sleep, chances are it's not what you're supposed to be doing. Chances are it doesn't have to do with your purpose. But if it makes you feel alive and invigorated and awake and it gives you energy, it's something to at least explore. And last, I want to say, don't be afraid to explore your instincts, right? Don't be afraid to invest a little time and a little money. You don't have to go overboard, but test your instincts, test your interests, see if they might be the beginning of a path that leads you somewhere amazing. We want to again thank Dave for coming in and dropping those nuggets on us. He's officially a friend of the show. I hope that you got as much inspiration and information from that interview as I did. Again, I'm Najee Simmons, and this is the No Job Podcast. See you next time. Thank you so much for joining us.